Hey, welcome back to another episode of Following Signs. I'm your host, Rucho Parl, and today I am so excited that you're here. In this episode, we're diving into a health topic that's critically important and affects millions of people worldwide: type 2 diabetes. This is a condition that is not just about blood sugar levels, it's about how our modern lifestyles intersect with biology, and it's an issue that grows at an alarming rate. But don't worry, today isn't all doom and gloom. We'll talk about what type 2 diabetes are, how to prevent it, how to manage it, and even some fascinating new research from Harvard that suggests, wait for it, eating dark chocolate might actually reduce your risk. Yeah, you heard right, dark chocolate. So stick around and I'll break down exactly what that means. We'll also bust a few myths about diabetes and look at the future of research in this space. So whether you're here because you want to take control of your health, support a loved one, or just learn something new, this episode is for you. Let's get started. First, let's establish the basics. What is type 2 diabetes? You've probably heard about it before, but it's worth diving into the details to understand how it works. Type 2 diabetes is a chronic condition that affects the way your body processes blood sugar, also known as glucose. Glucose is your body's main source of energy, and it comes from the food you eat. After you eat, your pancreas releases a hormone called insulin, which helps your cells absorb glucose from your bloodstream to use for energy. In type 2 diabetes, your blood doesn't produce enough insulin, or more commonly, your cells become resistant to insulin. Now think of insulin as a key and your cells as locked doors. In a healthy system, the key opens the door and glucose enters the cell. But in insulin resistance, the lock doesn't work properly anymore. This leads to higher levels of glucose in your bloodstream, which over time can cause serious health problems. Now, you might wonder how this is different from type 1 diabetes. In type 1 diabetes, the pancreas produces little to no insulin at all because the immune system attacks the insulin producing cells. It's an autoimmune condition, whereas type 2 is more closely linked to lifestyle factors, although genetics also does play a role. Now, some common symptoms of type 2 diabetes include thirst, frequent urination, fatigue, blurred vision, and slow healing of wounds. If left untreated, it can lead to complications like heart disease, kidney damage, and nerve damage. That's why understanding and addressing it is so important. Now, let's take a moment to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Type 2 diabetes is one of the fastest growing health conditions worldwide. Now, according to the International Diabetes Federation, as of 2021, over 537 million adults globally were living with diabetes, and the vast majority of those cases were type 2. To put that into perspective, that's about 1 in 10 adults worldwide. And it's not just an individual health issue, it's a societal one. Managing diabetes costs billions of dollars annually in healthcare expenses. Now, beyond the financial costs, this condition significantly impacts the quality of life for those affected and their families as well. Now, what's particularly concerning is how it disproportionately affects certain populations. For example, in the US, minority groups such as African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, and Asian Americans are at a higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes. This is due to a combination of genetic predispositions, socioeconomic factors, and disparities in access to health care. Now, understanding these disparities is crucial for crafting effective public health interventions. Now, the good news is that type 2 diabetes is largely preventable, and for those already diagnosed, it's manageable with the right strategies. Let's start with prevention. One of the most effective ways to reduce your risk is through a healthy diet. That doesn't mean you have to give up all of your favorite foods. That's not what I'm saying at all. But it does mean being mindful about your choices. Focus on whole, unprocessed foods like vegetables, fruits, whole grains, lean proteins, and healthy fats. And try to avoid excessive sugar and refined carbs, as these can spike blood sugar levels. Now, physical activity is another cornerstone of prevention. Regular exercise helps your body use insulin more effectively. Even 30 minutes of moderate activity a day, like brisk walking, can make a big difference. Weight management is also key. Losing even a small amount of weight, just 5 to 7% of your body weight, can significantly lower your risk. And don't underestimate the power of stress management. Chronic stress can lead to hormonal imbalances that contribute to insulin resistance. So, practices like yoga, meditation, or even just regular deep breathing can be helpful. Now, for those who have already been diagnosed, treatment typically involves a combination of lifestyle changes, oral medications, and in some cases, insulin therapy. The goal is to keep blood sugar levels within a target range to prevent complications. Now let's talk about a fascinating new study from Harvard that's been making headlines. Researchers have found a potential link between eating dark chocolate and a reduced risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Intriguing, right? Let's dig behind the science. Now, what makes dark chocolate so special? The key lies in a compound called flavonoids. Flavonoids are a natural plant chemical with powerful antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. In dark chocolate, these flavonoids come in high concentrations because of the cacao content. Here's the cool part. Flavonoids have been shown to improve insulin sensitivity. Now, insulin sensitivity is basically how responsive your cells are to insulin. When sensitivity improves, your cell can better absorb glucose from the bloodstream, which helps keep blood sugar levels stable. Now, the Harvard study focuses on high quality dark chocolate with at least 70% cacao content. The researchers found that people who consume small amounts of dark chocolate regularly had better insulin sensitivity and lower fasting blood sugar levels than those who didn't. But, and this is a big but, so keep that in mind, moderation is key. We're talking about an ounce or two a day, not an entire family sized bar. Dark chocolate may be good for you, but it's not a free pass to your pantry into the Willy Wonka's factory. But what about the anti-inflammatory angle? Chronic inflammation is a significant factor in insulin resistance. The flavonoids in dark chocolate helps reduce markers of inflammation in the body. Think about it as a double whammy. It fights inflammation while boosting your cell's ability to use insulin effectively. But let's keep things real. That doesn't mean you can ignore other lifestyle factors. You're not canceling out a diet of pizza and a soda with a square of dark chocolate. The Harvard researchers emphasized that dark chocolate works best as a part of your overall healthy lifestyle. So enjoy it, but don't let it replace your broccoli. Now, I'm not saying you have to become a dark chocolate connoisseur over time, but if you've been looking for an excuse to indulge a little bit, science might just have your back. Just make sure it's the real deal. Milk chocolate does not count. And white chocolate? Well, that's just a candy imposter. Now, let's tackle some myths about type 2 diabetes, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. Starting with myth number one, only overweight people get type 2 diabetes. Well, the reality is that while obesity is a significant risk factor in type 2 diabetes, thin people can also develop it. Genetics and other factors like stress and inactivity also play a role. Myth number two is eating too much sugar directly causes diabetes. And the reality is that eating sugars doesn't cause diabetes on its own. However, a diet high in sugar can lead to weight gain, which then increases the risk of developing the condition. Myth number three is if you have diabetes, you can't eat carbs. The reality is, this is absolutely not true. People with diabetes can eat carbs, but they need to be mindful about portion sizes and opt for complex carbohydrates like whole grains, fruits, and vegetables over simple carbs like white bread and sugary snacks. It's about balance, not elimination. Myth number four is people with diabetes can't have any sweets, ever, period. And the reality is, that's not true. Now, this is a really big myth. I've heard people say that if you have diabetes, desserts are completely off the table. Pun intended. The truth is, you can have sweets, but moderation is key. The trick is to plan ahead. Maybe you skip the bread at dinner if you're planning to enjoy a small slice of cake later. It's about finding what works for your body and not demonizing the food. Life's too short to never have a cookie. Now, myth number five is if you're diagnosed with diabetes, you're doomed to complications. And the reality is, no, that's not true. Managing your diabetes with a combination of healthy diet, exercise, and medication, of course, if necessary, can help prevent complications. In fact, many people with type 2 diabetes live long, healthy lives. It's all about taking proactive steps and staying informed. Now, myth number six is that diabetes isn't a serious disease. And the reality is, first of all, I'm not really sure where this myth started, but it couldn't be further from the truth. Untreated or poorly managed diabetes can lead to severe complications, including heart disease, kidney failure, and even amputations. However, when managed properly, the risk can be significantly reduced. So yes, it's serious, but it's also manageable with the right approach. Like everything, honestly. Now let's talk about the future of diabetes research. Honestly, this is my favorite segment because it looks towards future with a hope. And as cliche as that might sound, I really like that. Now, let's talk about the future finally, because science is always moving forward and that's something to be excited about. One area researchers are focusing on is personalized medicine. This approach tailors treatments to an individual's unique genetic makeup. For example, scientists are studying how specific genes affect insulin resistance and glucose metabolism. Now imagine a world where your diabetes treatment is custom made for your DNA. That's a good world to be in. Now, another promising field is wearable technology and continuous glucose monitoring, or CGM. These devices are getting more advanced every year. Now, some CGMs is now in sync with your smartphone, giving you real-time data on your blood sugar levels. It's like having a mini scientist in your pocket. Now, there's also a fascinating work being done on beta cell regeneration. Beta cells in your pancreas are responsible for producing insulin, and in type 2 diabetes, they often become damaged. Researchers are exploring ways to regenerate these cells, potentially reversing the disease. It's like hitting the reset button on your pancreas. How cool is that? And finally, let's not forget about our prevention efforts. Public health initiatives are increasingly focused on education and community-based interventions. For instance, programs that teach cooking skills and promote physical activity in underserved communities can make a huge difference. Especially because right now you might be thinking that, oh, Rutu, you're so wrong. Some things are just small, insignificant. But the truth is, it's the small things and habits that we do in our daily lives consistently that builds up into something else. For example, if you spend at least 30 minutes exercising every single day, in a couple months you will see results and they're gonna be good. But then you're like, oh, I can just do that in 3 hours, cram and get a perfect body. But that's not how it works. It's the small steps that compounded to make a huge impact, which is exactly what's happening here. Now, that wraps up our deep dive into type 2 diabetes. Today, we've covered what it is, how it works, and how to prevent and manage it. And even some cutting edge research that might make a big difference in the future. Oh, and let's not forget about the part about dark chocolate. Arguably the tastiest science I've shared all year. Now, if there's one takeaway I want you to remember, it's this. Type 2 diabetes is a complex condition, but it's not unbeatable. Whether you're looking to prevent it, manage it, or support somebody you love, knowledge is power. Now, before I wrap up, I also want to say Happy New Year, and I know this is the first episode of the year, so I really hope it was a good one, which is also why I would love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. If you have any questions about diabetes, maybe a personal short story to share, please reach out to me on social media or through Following Science website. I genuinely love hearing from you guys. And if you enjoyed this episode, of course, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. It really helps the podcast grow. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and as always, keep following science. This is your host, Rutu Parl, signing off.